Hi, I'm here with Marissa, one of the editors of Communist Revolution paper, and we're here to talk about this month's issue. The headline is, Have They Gone Mad?
Yeah, I think that's a question that's on a lot of people's minds.
Absolutely. I mean, like, as Israel, has expanded the war into Lebanon, is provoking Iran, it just seems like they aren't guided by sense at all. I mean, and is that the end of the story, really? Are they just bad people?
I mean, well, they are bad people, but that's not at the heart of it. Ultimately, the fact is that they are leaders of imperialist countries, and there's the logic of imperialism at work here. They're in competition with their rivals, and if the U.S., for example, shows a weakness by refusing to back Israel, that's showing weakness in the eyes of their rivals, and they can't do that. So there's an underlying logic that they're bound to.
Right. So I guess at the end of the day, ending the war in Gaza, it's not a question of getting rid of this or that leader. Mm-hmm. It's like the whole problem is imperialism itself, and we have to overthrow the system.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's a really important article, but what else is in this issue?
The theory article this month is a really good, really important article on NATO and what the natures of NATO is and why communists oppose it.
I think, like, for anyone familiar with communism, that's like a pretty obvious stance, but I do think this is like important to reiterate when you have so many people taking NATO's side in Ukraine, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, and especially with the NATO summit happening in Montreal this month. I think it's important to make the point that these are our class enemies. They aren't representing our countries as a whole. Right. They aren't representing, defending, peace and democracy or whatever else they like to say. They are warmongering imperialist powers that are our enemies, enemies of the working class here, as well as the enemies of the working class around the world.
Absolutely right. Well, I'm really looking forward to reading this in depth. I was flipping through this, and one thing I'm also really interested in is there's an interview in here, right?
Yeah, there's an interview with a Palestinian communist who confidentially spoke with us about his experience in Palestine and his thoughts on what needs to happen. We have a lot of other interesting articles as well, I think, of course, on the U.S. elections, updates on the student strike for Palestine.
Which is one
campaign.
of the things that, needs to happen, speaking of like what needs to happen to advance the Palestine Solidarity Movement.
Absolutely.
I think there's, coming up on November 21st, comrades across the country will be participating in this day of action for a student strike for Palestine.
Yep, exactly. And if you want to fight imperialism, you should join the communists.
So where can people get this paper if they want to read more?
Marxist.ca/store.
And you can subscribe at marxist.ca/subscribe.